I would like to call Mr. Irshad Motala to say a few words on behalf of the family. Mr. Irshad Motala.
Honored guests, dignitaries present, distinguished guest speaker, the former President of the Republic of South Africa, the Honorable Kgalema Motlanthe, Sanbonani, Dumelang, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Vanakkam, and good evening to all of you. I'm really privileged this evening to say a few words on behalf of the Motala family. That's the immediate family of my father, my late father, Dr. Muhammad Musa Motala, my mother Rabia, my sister Shireen, and brother-in-law Fuad, and their children. But I also do this on behalf of the extended Motala clan, which has its roots in Talana near Dundee in the early 1900s, and which today comprises my father's much-loved nephews and nieces and their own families, some of whom are here present today. Ladies and gentlemen, I must at the outset express my sincere thanks to Mancosa, and especially to its inspirational founder, Professor Yusuf Karodia, for initiating this annual lecture in memory of my father. It is also my special duty tonight to appreciate the presence of Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe and to thank him for accepting this invitation. Ntate, to have you delivering the 2016 lecture is a singular honor for our family, and we eagerly, I'm sure all of us present here, not just the family, eagerly look forward to hearing your input. This evening, I also want to recognize my mother for standing by my dad every step of the way, but for also being a committed activist in her own right. Thank you, Mom. We are proud of you and we love you. My father was born near Dundee in 1921 in very humble circumstances. One of his two elder brothers, Ghulam Hussain, was just in his early 20s when he succumbed to tuberculosis while he was employed as a factory worker in the leather industry in Pietermaritzburg. His own father, Musa, passed away when my dad was only 13 years old. And the plan was that my dad would start working at a shop to supplement the family income. But how important families are. His mother's cousin, the late M.I. Mir, then editor of the newspaper Indian Views, and incidentally the father of Dr. Farooq Mir, as my dad would say, plucked him from Dundee and took him to live with his rather large extended family in Durban, which allowed him to complete his secondary education at Sastry College. This move changed my father's life. He went on to study medicine in Bombay, supported with difficulty and sacrifice by his late brother Sahleh, himself a humble bookkeeper in Dundee. Indeed, how important families are. I don't think my father ever forgot this, and it seemed to imbue him with a deep sense of duty towards his extended family upon his return from India in 1949. Yet this sense of duty and caring went beyond his family, towards all people. I personally think that this was one of his points of entry into politics, the belief that we all have a responsibility to care about the welfare of our fellow human beings. Now, although my dad was part of a generation we sometimes refer to as the old school, he had a real zest for life and was extremely young at heart, and he loved people. He was a serious man, yet he had a good sense of humor, was intellectually curious, but hated shooting from the hip. My dad was a man of many parts. He had an abiding interest in ancient history, and that's how I became interested in that as well, especially African and Indian history. The great pre-colonial and ancient civilizations of Mali and Songhai and Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. He enjoyed playing cricket and bridge and appreciated Indian music, but also was moved by the power of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And he was fascinated with a few lines of stunning Xhosa alliterative poetry that he had learned from some chiefs in the Transkei while in prison. Incidentally, many of his comrades from the Eastern Cape referred to him as Mkwenyan, or son-in-law, because my mother was born in Kokstad, which was then part of the Eastern Cape. As a child, I learned many freedom songs from my dad, and I want to ask you to bear with me for one or two lines. he taught me these songs. Nan sindo tenya ma ferefu, nan sindo tenya ma ferefu, baso pandotenya, ferefu, baso pandotenya. And from the Italian resistance in this World War II, avanti populo alla riscossa, bandire rossa, bandire rossa. And a South African freedom song, written in the Hindi language. Desh ho bag ho, Africa ki tu palanhari kar. Indeed, my dad was a man of many parts, but most of all, he liked and cared about people. He had a wonderful ability to interact and show empathy with people from all walks of life and from all communities, regardless of age, gender, race, religion, or their station in life. Despite his own rather busy life, he always made time for people, his own siblings, other family members, associates, members of the community, the Mulana at the mosque and the Pandit at the temple, and the Mpundis at Kereka Maluteri, and medical patients, be they old aunties and uncles wanting a sympathetic ear, or young activists with bullet wounds. He had time for all of them. He was indeed a people's man. And although he strictly subjected himself to the discipline of the liberation movement, he was not, as I remember him, an ideologue in any sense. I think he valued truth and honesty above political correctness. His creed, as I understand it, was truth and serving others, especially the oppressed and downtrodden. And he was always excited and inspired when people anywhere in the world rose up against injustice, whether it was the people of the Congo striving to attain freedom led by that great African patriot Patrice Lumumba, or Indira Gandhi's fight to end poverty in India under the slogan Garibi Hatao, which means away with poverty. And he was passionate about actively working towards these ideals, working towards social justice in South Africa. In pursuit of these ideals, he worked with political activists in the KwaZulu-Natal Midlands and beyond. From the 1950s onwards, he worked very, very closely with men and women of his own generation, like the late Harry Gwala and S.B. Mangal, who were communists, Moses Mabhida, a trade unionist, Archie Gumede of the ANC, and Peter Brown of the Liberal Party, and many, many other brave people. Beyond the Midlands, he worked with others, including icons like Inkosi Albert Lutuli, Dr. Monty Naika, and Bishop Hurley, Dennis Hurley, as well as our beloved Walter Sisulu and Madiba. One of the things that my dad was really passionate about, and I especially want to mention this, he was passionate about, as many of us are, but he was really passionate about that there should be harmony between all the communities that make up the rich tapestry of our beloved country, regardless of ethnicity, race, or religion. I think the sheer horror, the horror of the communal Hindu-Muslim strife that he had witnessed in India in the 1940s when he was studying there, I think that deeply influenced him. So he put a lot of energy into building bridges between communities and working towards what we now call social cohesion. But let me conclude. I would like to thank each and every one of you for your attendance here this evening. Dignitaries, family members, well-wishers, my late father's friends, colleagues, and comrades. Such an occasion makes it possible not only to honor one good man or one fighter for social justice, it is also an opportunity to salute all those courageous and selfless men and women, those who have passed on and those who are still alive, who continue to fight to uphold the truth and oppose what is wrong, often at considerable risk to themselves. It is an opportunity to remind ourselves, especially in this time of globalization, which is characterized by a growing nexus of business and political elites, and in the face of alarming and growing inequality within our own society and on a global scale, that the struggle for social and economic justice never ends, it is ongoing. The purpose of today is not only to honor the good work that Chota Motala and others of his generation undertook selflessly, diligently, and fearlessly for over 50 years of their lives. But more important, the purpose of today is to remind us that there's a duty on all of us to make a contribution to that work by being active citizens ourselves. Yabong.